Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. Today we're going to be covering the 9th juz of the Quran, which basically is the 13th juz of the Quran, which is basically going to be covering the following verses. So the verses for today are going to be from Surah Yusuf, verse 53 until the end, and Surah Al-Ra'd, which is the thunder. So Surah Yusuf is the name of Prophet Joseph. Surah Al-Ra'd is the thunder, a creation, manifestation from Allah. And Surah Ibrahim, or Abraham, verses 1 to 52. So just to give you kind of an overview of what these verses entail, First, Surah Yusuf, we're in the middle of it. So it begins by talking about how Prophet Yusuf was falsely accused. And when he was falsely accused, he was finally cleared of his guilt, and he comes out of prison, and he's actually put in charge of the granary over Egypt. And Egypt is a very powerful civilization at the time. So this is something really amazing, that he goes from being falsely accused, from being in prison, to ending up in a very high position in the Egyptian government. And then his brothers come and they try to get food from Yusuf. And then they come back and they try and convince their father to let their younger brother, Binyamin, also go to Egypt. This is a very interesting story. It goes into a lot of detail. And then it talks about the incident of stealing the cup. And we're going to cover that in detail today, inshallah. This is incident of stealing the cup that happens. And then eventually later on, the father gets so stressed out, he loses his vision. And finally, Yusuf can't take it anymore, and he reveals himself. And there's a very nice, happy ending. So it's a beautiful story about Prophet Yusuf, how he goes through different challenges in his life. But in the end, there's a happy ending. So happy that not only does he change, not only is he in a good situation, but even the bad people in the story, they end up changing as well, which is great. His brothers who did something bad changed. The guy who falsely accused him, the woman who falsely accused him, they all changed. They all admit at the end. So it's an amazing story. Then comes Surah Al-Ra'd. Ra'd means thunder. So it talks about the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in nature and the way he manifests that power. And it refutes people who are denying the resurrection. People who say, you know what? There's not going to be any afterlife. This world is the only thing. Allah goes in details about that. And then he talks about the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the power of the creator. He can do anything, so he can bring people back to life as well. And it talks about how the thunder sings the praise of Allah. So it's a way of manifesting obedience to Allah, even when we hear that loud crack of thunder. Then comes the story, or the Surah Ibrahim. Surah Ibrahim actually begins with the story of Prophet Musa. Prophet Musa reminding his people, to only worship Allah and not accept idols, and to be, firm on committing themselves to the message of Islam. And then it talks about Prophet Ibrahim, how he supplicates for his family, how he makes dua for his family at Mecca, and then some other things in general, how he makes dua for his family. So what we'll do is we'll zoom in on some verses from Surah Yusuf. So we'll start with verse 50. Okay, this is chapter 12, verse 50, which is technically 3 verses prior to Juz 13. It's in Juz 12, but we need the whole story, so we'll go back 3 verses. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ ائْتُونِي بِهِ. So he says, it says, and the king said, bring him to me. He's talking about Prophet Yusuf. So the king of Egypt is saying, call Prophet Yusuf over here. I want to see him. فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُ الرَّسُولُ قَالَ ارْجِعْ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَاسْأَلْهُ مَا بَالُ النِّسْوَةِ اللَّاتِي قَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنَّ. It says, then when they went to, so this is Prophet Yusuf, he's in prison. Okay, he has been imprisoned. Why? False accusation of molesting or abusing the wife of the Aziz, the wife of the Potiphar is the name that they use, the biblical name. And so Yusuf is falsely accused. So he was thrown in prison, even though he's a great person, he didn't do anything wrong. And it says, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ الرَّسُولُ, when the messenger of the king says, I want this guy is amazing. He helped the king out while he was in prison. So the king is basically saying, this guy is amazing. This is such a nice guy. He's such a wise person, and he helped me out. He didn't even need to help me. I wanna help this guy. Let's get him out of prison. So he says, I'm gonna give you the king pardon, kind of like a presidential pardon. I'm gonna forgive you. I'm gonna get you out of prison. I'm gonna get you out of jail. So it says that when the messenger of the king went to him, right? What did Prophet Yusuf say? Now, what would you say? And just think about this for a moment. You've been falsely accused of abusing somebody else, right? You must be, burning inside. And then you go to jail on top of that. So your reputation has been ruined. You're a nice guy. You haven't done anything wrong, or a nice girl or something like that. And now you've gone to jail. Imagine the psychological effect of that has on you. And it's not an easy jail. I'm sure Egyptian jails were very tough. So now they come and they say, you know what, the king has forgiven you. Let's go. And what does Yusuf say? He says, "Irji' ila rabbika fas'alhu ma balu niswati allati qata'na aydiyahun." He says, no, I am not leaving. I'm not leaving until I'm cleared of my crime that I've been accused of. Until I'm deemed to be innocent, I'm not leaving. So then he goes, go back and ask about the women who cut their hands, because this is an earlier part of the story where these women came by and they knew that the wife of the Aziz was trying to seduce Prophet Yusuf. And then she falsely accused him because he rejected her, he denied her, right? So he was the nice guy and she was actually the one to blame. But what did she do? She accused him of being the abuser, or the one who tried to seduce her, and she claimed to be the victim, even though she was lying. So he says, no, I don't want to leave with people thinking that I'm guilty. I want my reputation to be cleared as well. So what he's asking for is, I want an investigation into the affair. I don't want people to just throw it to the side and say, you know what, it's not a big deal. The king forgave him and okay, Yusuf got a special position. He wants the truth to manifest itself. And he says, Inna Rabbi bikaydihinna alim. Indeed, my Lord is more knowledgeable, or is knowledgeable about their plot that they came up with. Right? They kind of schemed together and came up with this idea. Now the word Rabb he's telling the messenger, go back to your Lord, meaning the king. And then he's saying, my Lord has more knowledge about what happened. When he's using the word my Lord, look at the kind of the double way in which he's saying this in order to conceal. My Lord, he means Allah. But he's referring to your Lord as the king. So it's kind of like the guy who's listening doesn't even understand that subtlety there. Very, very clever usage of words that he has. And then he says, قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُنَّ إِذْ رَاوَدْتُنَّ يُوسُفَ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. So what was the matter with you? What was with you that you seduced and you tempted Yusuf against himself? Like he didn't want that. قُلْنَا حَاشَى لِلَّهِ مَا عَلِمْنَا عَلَيْهِ مِنْ سُوءٍ. He says, no, we seek refuge in Allah. Like this, no way that we didn't know anything about Yusuf, any wrong thing about Yusuf, right? Meaning that this guy didn't do anything wrong. This was a very innocent, pure soul. He was a very nice person. He was not bad at all. So then this is what the women were saying, right? The women who were the friends of the wife of the Aziz. قَالَتِ امْرَأَةُ الْعَزِيزِ الْآنَ حَصْحَصَ الْحَقِّ. And then she says, now the truth has finally come to light. أَنَا رَاوَدْتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ وَإِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. And then she comes along and says, you know what? The truth is clear now. The investigation has been done. Okay, I'm going to tell the truth too. I'm the one who tried to seduce him, and he was among the truthful people. I was the one who was lying, right? He was truthful the whole time. He didn't do any of those things, and I'm sorry. And she apologized. It's an amazing story, right? So she apologizes. She admits whether it was by force or not. Yusuf is now finally clear. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ لِيَعْلَمَ أَنِّي لَمْ أَخُنْهُ بِالْغَيْبِ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي كَيْدَ الْخَائِنِينَ. That is so it can be known, يعلم, that it can be known that I did not betray him in absence, right? And that Allah and Allah la yahdi kayd al-kha'inin, and that Allah does not allow the plots of deceivers to be successful. Right? Basically, what Prophet Yusuf is saying, he's saying, you know why I did that? You know why I didn't get out of jail? I had a get out of jail free card. Do you know why I didn't take it? I didn't take it for two reasons. Number one, I wanted it to be known very clearly that I did not betray him. Who was he betraying? One, he did not betray Allah. Allah already knows that. Allah knows he's innocent. He did not betray the Aziz, because the Aziz was the person who had a very high position in Egypt. He was a high-level politician. And he was good to Yusuf. So when he purchased Yusuf as a slave, Yusuf was sold into slavery. When he purchased him, he actually treated him well. And he says, I wanted it to be 100% clear to him in his mind that I did not betray him. His wife betrayed him, not me. So I wanted him to know that I had kept the honor with which, I had promised to keep. And just imagine what that means. That means a lot to this man, right? Imagine if a man thinks that someone has violated his wife, right? Or done something like that. He's going to think, this is horrible. How could this person come in my household and do these things? He said, I wanted him to know what the truth was, so he could have contentment in his heart. Now, of course, he's going to be disturbed by the fact that his wife betrayed him. But at the same time, at least knowing what is true, truth brings contentment to the heart. That's just the reality of it. When people learn something new and they thought it was this way and they realize that was wrong and they get to the truth, and they're like, it brings this level of contentment. And that's a blessing from Allah. It helps us to arrive at truth when we have some level of motivation to actually get there or get to it, right? So that's what's going on. And then it says also, I wanted to make it clear that Allah does not allow the people who scheme and plot and do all sorts of bad things and falsely accuse other people. I wanted it to make it clear that those people, especially those who falsely accuse others, their plots are not going to be successful, right? And he's saying in this dunya, in this world, but at least in the akhirah, at minimum, Allah is not, you can plot and plan and slander other people and set them up and make claims against them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the end of the day, he's going to bring the ultimate justice. So you may feel confident that, you got away with it and, you were able to get something out of someone else. But in the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's going to judge. And he is the one he knows every single plot. He knows every single technique and strategy and tactic. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to hold those people accountable. And they should be afraid. And that should hopefully deter them. Even if it doesn't deter them, it's going to at least give some solace, some level of, being able to digest and overcome the situation for all the people who have gone through something like this, right? That brings comfort in the heart. People knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not, these people did not get away with their plots and their plans and their tricks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to hold them to account for that. And then the next verse, and he says, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي. So I do not say that, I am 100% clear of any type of mistake or fault. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Prophet Yusuf said, I'm not saying that. Inna nafsa la'ammaratun bis-su'i illa ma rahima rabbi. Is that the soul, the heart, the better translation would be the ego, the nafs, the ego that tempts us and drives us to engage in desires. He says that ego, la'ammaratun bis-su'. It commands towards evil. It drives you. Command's not the best translation. It motivates you and it makes you inclined towards evil, towards bad things. Illa ma rahima rabbi, except what Allah has had mercy on, except what my Lord has had mercy on. Meaning, except when you have the mercy of Allah that's going to help protect you. All of us have inclinations. All of us have this nafs that drives us and makes us get tempted to doing bad things. So what is he referring to? He's referring to both things, actually. He was tempted by a woman who tried to seduce him. And keep in mind, right, usually if she's married to a guy who's very, very powerful in Egypt, she's probably pretty decent, good-looking woman, right? Because really powerful, wealthy guy, usually they have more selection from their pool and all of that. So she's probably a good-looking girl, okay? Number one. So he's being tempted by her, okay? And the husband is out. He's not around. We're going to keep this whole thing confidential. It's okay. And he's a young man, and he's technically a slave. I mean, he's in slavery, right? So he's like, and he has his needs and his desires. So he's basically saying, number one, I have enoughs too. Maybe I've been a little bit tempted. And, some scholars of Tafseer, they've exaggerated too much in this. They've gone in and brought reports about how there was a love story between the two of them since she admitted, what she did, then they end up getting married and all of that stuff. There's really no basis for any of that stuff. It's kind of like folk tales and turned into a story. But again, at the same time, what we can derive from this, at minimum, the lesson is that everyone gets tempted. Even a prophet can get tempted, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put nafs in everyone. Even Prophet Yusuf is saying, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm not saying that I couldn't be tempted. So he had some level of temptation and he had to resist, and he did. I mean, it was difficult, right? So he resisted that temptation. But then there's a second temptation that's mentioned here, and that is the nafs of the woman. What was her temptation? Her temptation was to falsely accuse him. And it's a different type of temptation. So there's the romantic temptation on one side, and then there's if you're not going to do exactly what I tell you to do, if I'm not going to get my way, and I'm powerful and I'm rich and I'm wealthy and I think I have a lot of power, then I am going to make your life a living hell. I'm going to make your life miserable. I am going to watch what I do to you, right? And then that was her nafs, tempting her to go and retaliate against Yusuf. He says, Inna Rabbi Ghafurur Rahim. Indeed, my Lord is forgiving and merciful. For both. Allah is forgiving and merciful for those who have certain thoughts, certain desires, certain things come in their mind. And, even Allah forgives those things, especially when you don't act upon them. You ask Allah, Allah, get these thoughts out of my head. And you're not responsible for the thoughts that come in your mind. And that's amazing. That's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, number one. And number two, when you ask Allah for forgiveness, like this woman asked for forgiveness and she admitted that she was wrong, even someone who has done something so serious, like slandering another person, accusing them of abuse and getting them thrown in jail and all of these things, those things can be forgiven when you ask Allah for forgiveness. He is Ghafur. He will give maghfirah, He will grant forgiveness, and He is merciful, Rahim. Do not be distant from His mercy. Do not think that He's not going to forgive. Right? So this is a few verses of the story that I just wanted to reflect upon from the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. So we will leave it at that, and around the 20-minute mark here. And if there's any questions, we can ask that. We'll take maybe 30 seconds to see if anyone has questions, either from Facebook or from YouTube. And I will try to answer those questions if possible. Okay, so it looks like there's no questions. So inshallah, we'll conclude here. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a deep understanding of the Quran. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it a blessing in our lives, to help us have the best Ramadan we've ever had. Ameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nastaghfirukallah wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.